The government already knows most of you will survive a nuclear event. The protocol exists, they just never told you. In January 2026, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists moved the Doomsday Clock to 89 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been in its 78-year history. In February 2026, the last remaining nuclear arms control treaty between the United States and Russia, New START, expired. No replacement was agreed. For the first time in decades, there are no formal limits on the world's two largest nuclear arsenals. The U.S. intelligence community's 2026 Annual Threat Assessment states the threats to the homeland currently include more than 3,000 missiles capable of reaching U.S. soil, projected to exceed 16,000 by 2035. The nuclear preparedness information you are about to hear comes directly from FEMA, the CDC, the Department of Homeland Security, and the Radiation Emergency Medical Management Program. This is not speculation. This is the protocol. Here is the fact the government's own data supports and almost no civilian knows. Outside the immediate blast zone, survival is highly likely if you take the right action in the first 15 minutes. A nuclear detonation creates 5 distinct zones. Zone 1 is total destruction. Nothing survives within roughly 1 mile of a surface burst, but the majority of the population in a targeted city exists in zones 3, 4, and 5, where survival with protection is the documented reality. At 10 miles from a 300-kiloton blast, survival probability exceeds 95%. The primary threat beyond that distance is not the blast, it is radioactive fallout, and fallout is manageable if you act correctly. This brings us to the most important protocol in this entire briefing, the 15-minute window. FEMA's own guidance states that fallout generally begins to accumulate approximately 15 minutes after detonation. That is your window. Step 1. Get inside, immediately. Any building is better than no building. A brick or concrete structure is dramatically better than a wood frame house. A basement or interior corridor is better still. You are reducing your exposure to fallout particles outside. Step 2. Stay inside. FEMA's guidance is a minimum of 24 hours. The most dangerous fallout radiation occurs in the first 24 to 48 hours. Do not go outside to look for family members. Do not get in a car. Stay where you are. Step 3. Tune in. This is why the hand-crank NOAA weather radio from your emergency kit is non-negotiable. During a nuclear event, cell networks will fail. Your phone will not work. Official emergency broadcasts will be the only reliable information source. Get in, stay in, tune in. This is FEMA's official 3-step nuclear response protocol. 3 words. The data shows these 3 actions reduce your radiation exposure from fallout by up to 90% compared to remaining outdoors. Here is the science of how fallout radiation decays, and it is far more encouraging than people expect. Residual radioactivity decreases to approximately 10% of its initial level within 7 hours of detonation. This is called the rule of sevens, or the 7-10 rule. For every 7-fold increase in time after detonation, radiation dose rate decreases by a factor of 10. After 49 hours, 2 days, radiation has fallen to 1% of its initial level. Based on FEMA guidance, most survivors outside the primary blast zone can leave shelter after 24 to 48 hours, and in most cases, by 2 weeks, radiation has dropped to levels where normal movement is possible. Some areas close to the blast may require longer. The decontamination protocol is simpler than people expect. If you have been outside during the fallout window, remove your outer layer of clothing before entering shelter. This eliminates approximately 80% of external contamination. Then wash exposed skin with soap and water. FEMA's guidance is clear: food, bottled drinks, medications already inside an intact shelter at the time of detonation are safe for consumption. Packaged items in cabinets, refrigerators, and freezers are safe. Do not consume food or water from outside. Potassium iodide key is a non-radioactive iodine tablet that protects the thyroid gland by saturating it before radioactive iodine can be absorbed. It is FDA approved, available over the counter, and is one item in your preparedness kit you cannot improvise. Critical caveats. Key protects only the thyroid gland. It does not protect against any other radiation. According to the CDC, it is recommended primarily for those under 40 and pregnant or breastfeeding women. It must be taken correctly and on official instruction. Timing is everything with key. According to Radiation Emergency Medical Management, taking key within 1 to 2 hours of exposure can block more than 90% of radioactive iodine uptake. After 4 hours, effectiveness drops significantly. After 8 hours, the benefit is minimal. Iodized table salt is not a substitute for key. It does not contain sufficient iodine concentration to provide protection, and consuming excessive amounts is itself dangerous. This is documented. WHO guidance. Do not improvise. The Federal Planning Guidance for Response to a Nuclear Detonation states, that even the basement of a one-story wood frame building provides a protection factor of 10, meaning radiation exposure is reduced to 1/10 of what it would be outdoors. A concrete building's core reduces it to 1% or less. 3 critical myths. Myth 1. If you see the flash, you dead. False. At distances beyond 5 miles, the flash will cause temporary blindness if you look at it, not death. Do not look at the flash drop and cover, then act. Myth 2. Drive away immediately. This is one of the most dangerous misconceptions. FEMA explicitly warns that getting in a car exposes you to fallout and leaves you stuck in traffic, unable to access shelter. Getting inside a building and staying there is consistently safer than driving. Myth 3. Nuclear events are unsurvivable. This is the most dangerous misconception because it eliminates protective behavior. FEMA's own planning guidance was written specifically because survival is the expected outcome for those outside the immediate blast zone who take correct action. Let's now build the kit. A nuclear preparedness kit is not a separate system from your core emergency kit. It is a targeted addition to it. 6 specific items address the nuclear scenario in ways your standard kit does not. Item 1. Potassium iodide tablets. FDA-approved key in 65 mg or 130 mg tablets. Available over the counter. Store supply for every household member. Check expiration dates annually. Typical shelf life is 5 years. Item 2. 95 respirator masks. These filter out radioactive particulate matter, the fine fallout dust that would otherwise be inhaled. Standard surgical masks provide minimal protection. 95 or higher is the documented standard. Store at least 5 per person. 3. Plastic sheeting and duct tape for improvised shelter sealing. FEMA's shelter-in-place guidance recommends sealing gaps in doors, windows, and vents with plastic sheeting to reduce the infiltration of radioactive particles. A standard roll of plastic sheeting and 2 rolls of duct tape is sufficient. Item 4. Extended water reserve. A nuclear event may extend your shelter duration to 2 weeks. Your standard 72-hour water supply is insufficient. For this scenario, maintain a minimum 2-week water supply, 14 gallons per person in sealed containers already inside the shelter. Item 5. The hand-crank NOAA weather radio is in your core kit already. For nuclear preparedness, the specific upgrade is ensuring it covers the emergency alert system frequencies and has a battery backup. This is the only reliable information source after cell network failure. Item 6. A personal radiation dosimeter. This device measures your cumulative radiation exposure over time. It tells you whether your shelter is working, when it is safe to briefly leave, and whether decontamination steps are necessary. Dosimeters are available and affordable. The complete nuclear additions to your core kit: potassium iodide tablets, 95 masks, plastic sheeting with duct tape, a 2-week water reserve, a hand-crank NOAA radio, and a radiation dosimeter. Total cost under $100 beyond your core kit. The nuclear scenario requires one additional household protocol that most families have not established: a pre-agreed shelter-in-place location in your home, a pre-agreed out-of-contact communication plan if family members are separated, and a physical copy of this protocol posted inside the shelter. Location. If you are outside when a detonation occurs at distance, do not look at the flash. Drop immediately and face away. Cover your head. The blast wave from a distant detonation may take 30 seconds or more to arrive. When the blast passes, move immediately to the nearest substantial building. Fallout particles are visible. They typically appear as fine sand or ash-like material, often described as similar in texture to table salt or fine dust. They can collect on horizontal surfaces, windows, cars, rooftops. If you see this material settling outside, do not go out. You are in the fallout zone. The current threat landscape: North Korea continues to develop intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of reaching U.S. soil, and the DNI 2026 Threat Assessment confirms these systems are operational. Russia maintains more than 4,000 deployed and reserve nuclear warheads. China is accelerating its nuclear buildup. In May 2025, India and Pakistan, 2 nuclear-armed states, entered 4 days of open conventional conflict before de-escalation. The Chatham House assessment called it alarming for its escalation potential. This was the most significant real-world nuclear risk event of the past decade. The 2025 Worldwide Threat Assessment assessed that Iran's timeline to sufficient weapons-grade uranium for a first nuclear device had been reduced to probably less than 1 week. U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities in June 2025 created significant uncertainty about the current status. These are not distant geopolitical abstractions. These are documented threat vectors with real civilian impact timelines. The preparedness case for nuclear readiness is not about expecting a nuclear war. It is about understanding that the risk environment in 2026 is categorically higher than it was in 2015. The single biggest preparedness obstacle for nuclear readiness is what cognitive scientists call normalcy bias, the tendency to underestimate both the likelihood of an event and its impact because it hasn't happened before. The human brain resists preparing for events that feel extreme. The correct frame is not, do I expect a nuclear event? The correct frame is, given the documented risk environment, what is the cost of 30 minutes and $100 to be completely prepared for a scenario with this threat profile? The answer is obvious. This week's first action, identify the best shelter location in your home or workplace. The protocol is, go below ground if available basement first. If no basement, go to the most interior room on the lowest floor, as far from exterior walls and windows as possible. This week's second action, communicate the protocol to every member of your household, the shelter location, the get and stay in tune in protocol, and the location of the key tablets. Children over 10 can understand this information. The conversation takes less than 10 minutes. The historical record is informative. At Hiroshima, those in reinforced concrete structures within approximately 1 mile of the hypocenter in some cases survived. Those more than 1.5 miles away in adequate shelter had substantially higher survival rates. Distance and shelter are the two variables that matter most. A note on the psychological weight of this briefing. This information is not intended to cause fear. It is intended to transfer it from the unknown into the manageable. A prepared household does not become afraid of a nuclear event. It becomes capable of responding to one. FEMA's nuclear detonation planning guidance explicitly states that planning for the first 72 hours is the foundation of civilian nuclear response. The same window as your core emergency kit, but with shelter in place as the primary action rather than movement. Throughout a nuclear event, official emergency broadcasts carry legally specific guidance that is your primary decision input. FEMA's protocol is clear. Do not act on rumor, social media, or bystander information. The emergency alert system, NOAA radio, and official government channels are your only reliable sources. FEMA's guidance is explicit. Medications already inside your shelter at the time of detonation are safe to take. The risk from not taking critical life-sustaining medication is greater than the potential risk of trace contamination. If you have essential prescriptions, maintain your nuclear event surplus as part of your standard 30-day medication reserve. When do you leave shelter? Only when official emergency broadcasts authorize it, or when you have confirmed, via dosimeter, that radiation levels in your location have dropped to safe levels. Do not self-authorize based on time alone. Use the tools in your kit to make an informed decision. The preparedness mindset for nuclear events is no different from the preparedness mindset for any other threat. You are not preparing because you expect it to happen. You are preparing because you refuse to be entirely dependent on circumstance if it does. 3 action steps before this briefing closes. These are the specific actions the data supports as highest priority for nuclear preparedness, and each one takes less than 30 minutes. Step 1, this week, buy potassium iodide tablets at 95 masks for every member of your household. Store them in your primary shelter location. Label them with the purchase date. This single action addresses the most critical nuclear-specific preparedness gap for most households. Step 2, identify and communicate your household shelter location. Walk through your home, identify the best shelter position, and tell every person in your household where it is. If you have children, walk them to the location physically. This conversation takes 10 minutes. Step 3, print this protocol. The FEMA Nuclear Response Protocol is available for free at ready.gov. Print a copy, seal it in a plastic sleeve, post it in your designated shelter location. In a nuclear event, you will not have internet access. You will have this sheet. Subscribe to 0 Hour Life if this briefing was useful. New briefings publish every week. The next briefing covers the EMP threat, electromagnetic pulse, what actually happens to electronics, the grid, and vehicles, and the specific protocol differences between an EMP event and a conventional grid failure. The data is clear. The protocol exists. Most people outside the immediate blast zone who take correct action in the first 15 minutes survive. You now know the protocol. The question is whether you act on it. This is 0 Hour Life. Prepare. Adapt. Next briefing publishes in 5 days.